right? So a lot of y'all who wanted to be Dr. Dolittle, your opportunity may be right around the corner. You may be able to speak to animals. Also, we may be able to reach the ones who possibly have a bad reputation. That's my thoughts. You know what I mean? And with the good comes the bad, how AI is stealing voices and identities and different things like that. Let's check these videos out.
Way back in the 80s, I noticed that sometimes when an elephant called a member of her family, one individual would answer and everybody else ignored the calling animal. And then she would call again and a different elephant would sort of lift her head up and, rumble very loudly.
This is Joyce Poole. She's been studying African elephants and their communication for 50 years.
Then I started to think, well, okay, so maybe they have a way of directing a call to a specific individual, but we had no way of detecting that.
Decades later, she partnered up with Mickey Pardo, who designed a study around her observations.
I went out into the field, I recorded calls with careful behavioral observations, so we knew who made each call, we knew who the call was addressed to, we knew the context of the call.
They encoded the acoustic information from the recordings into a long string of numbers, along with the data Mickey collected about the calls. They fed nearly 500 different calls like this into a statistical model. And when given the acoustic structure of a new call, the model could predict who the receiver of the call was much better than chance. In other words, evidence suggesting African savanna elephants give each other names.
When we posted it on Facebook, somebody wrote back, said that the earth just shifted a little bit. And I think that's true.
This is just one example of how machine learning is decoding complexities in animal communication that humans can't detect. And now some AI researchers want to take the next step. Large language models, like the ones that power chatbots, but built for interspecies communication.
Can we talk a little bit about love?
There is still much to be learned about whales.
Now, that's going to be a game changer because I didn't even think about the whales and sharks and different things of the ocean that could also be communicating that we can understand. Now, I'm not getting in the water to listen, but you know what I mean? Maybe you could put something in the water and hear what's going on. Hey, they better not get in this water. They're getting this water. I'm kind of hungry right now. I'm eating the first thing that put their toe in the water. You know, I'm being funny for sure, but whatever type of communication we could pick up from them would be essential, I would think.
When researchers study animal communication, they usually employ a few methods: recording their vocalizations, observing and documenting the behavior and context around those sounds, and sometimes doing a playback to measure the animal's response. All of these areas are already being impacted by AI. Recordings from the field don't usually sound like this. They often sound like this. Multiple animals vocalizing on top of one another in a noisy environment. This is known as the cocktail party problem, and it's a common issue in the field of animal research. But machine learning solved a similar problem in human speech recognition. AI researchers trained a model called deep karaoke on lots of music tracks where instruments and vocals were recorded separately, then also on the fully mixed tracks, until it was able to do the task of separating out instruments and vocals in new music clips. Recently, AI researchers have had some success applying similar algorithms to animal sound recordings, which means you can take a clip of a group of macaque monkeys and single out one discernible call. Researchers could also start using AI in how they use playbacks in the field. You may have seen AI models that can be trained on lots of examples of a sound recording. Tomorrow. And then generate another unique version of it. AI researchers are starting to develop similar models for animal recordings. These are all types of supervised learning. That means that the model gets trained on lots of examples labeled by humans. And in the elephant name study, researchers were able to feed a model their observations, which, along with the sound data, helped them detect something in elephant calls they couldn't through observation alone.
You need to annotate a lot of data.
Yossi Yovel trained a statistical model on 15,000 Egyptian fruit bat vocalizations, which was able to identify the emitter of the call, the context of the call, its behavioral response, and who the call was addressed to.
And we annotated them manually. So, I'm already saying this is a restriction of the study because maybe we're missing something. We're humans, we're not bats.
And that's the problem with supervised learning models. They are limited by what we humans already know about animal communication in order to label the training data. And we don't know a lot. That's why some AI researchers say self-supervised models hold the most potential for decoding animal communication. This is how natural language processing models like ChatGPT are trained. Instead of human-labeled examples, they are trained on a large amount of unlabeled data, and they can sort it according to patterns and categories it detects all on its own. In the example of ChatGPT, it learned from all the books, websites, social media feeds, and anything else it could scrape from the internet and came to its own conclusions about how language works.
Every language.
So basically, it's teaching and learning itself, which is scary when you think about it. You know what I mean? It's going to be tremendously helpful and an asset to us because look at what it's able to do here and problem solve and do different things. But you can't help but be scared of it's gonna be so smart eventually that what does that mean for us? So that's the scary side of it.
Which has a shape that AI discovers.
This is Asa Raskin. He co-founded the Earth Species Project, one of a few organizations that want to build models like this for animal communication. What he means by language having a shape is that language models are built out of relationships among words.
Words that mean similar things are placed near each other, words that share a relationship, share a distance and direction. So man is to king as woman is to queen.
So this is the shape of all those relationships among the English language's 10,000 most common words, visualized here by the Earth Species Project. Flattened out, it looks something like this.
Something really miraculous happened in 2017, and that was researchers discovered that you could take the shape of any one language and match it to the shape of any other language, and the point, which is dog, ends up in the same spot.
This idea that similar words can be located in other languages in roughly the same place is what gives the Earth Species Project hope we could do a version of this for animal communication.
To do a translation without needing any examples, without needing a Rosetta Stone.
This is complicated, though, because we know that animals don't just communicate with sound, but with other senses, too. But Asa points out that we can learn from the fact that image generation models like DALL-E and Midjourney are built on the same large language model structure used for text.
It turns out behind the scenes, it's again these kinds of shapes. There's the shape that represents sound, the shape that represents images. Those two shapes get aligned, and now you can translate between images and text.
Their expectation is that where non-human animals' communication would line up with ours will tell us even more about what we have in common.
Dolphins look in mirrors and recognize themselves. Elephants too, that's a kind of self-awareness.
One concern with this plan is related to a step in self-supervised learning called validation, meaning humans still need to refine these models by grading them on their answers. How would we do that in a communication so foreign from our own? We also might have too high of expectations of this overlap, or the capacity for having a conversation with a non-human animal in a shared language and about shared experiences.
Hey Kurt, how are you doing, dude?
So I'm about to translate that into a meow.
We said hi, 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 Next time you want to say, how are you?
I do not think that humans should be considered more important than other species, but that doesn't mean that there's no usefulness in distinguishing between language, which is this very specific behavior that, at least based on what we currently know, seems to be unique to humans, and other forms of communication.
Imagine how many animals that could save if you knew what was wrong with a dog that has been displaying some aggressiveness here lately. If you could communicate with that dog to understand and figure out and get to the bottom of the problem, then you could save that dog's life. you could save that dog's life, bro. They're just like humans.
In order to build these models, the first step is collecting a lot more data on animal sounds than exists right now.
And so I'm actually at the moment building up a database with all the individual calls, so close to 10,000 records in that, which is very small, actually.
Around the world, animal researchers are in the midst of a massive data collection effort, tagging and recording animals with video and sound and spatial data to feed these data-thirsty models. Time will tell whether true interspecies communication will be facilitated by AI. But researchers hope that discoveries along the way will continue to have an impact on our appreciation and protection of the species we share the planet with.
We're not the only ones on the planet who can communicate, who care about one another, who have thoughts about the past and about the future. They also have a right to be here and a reason for being here.
Now, here's one of the reasons why I think AI, animal communication, could be important. You know what I mean? Dogs have gotten a bad reputation, certain breeds of dogs, because of, you know, for reasons that humans have done, how they've raised them, bred them, different things they've done to them to get this bad reputation, right? But how AI can help maybe change that one day. This video here is titled How Pit Bulls Got a Bad Reputation. Let's go.
Being attacked by dogs.
A pit bull breeder is savagely mauled to death, killed by his 13 pit bulls.
You've probably seen a lot of stories about pit bull attacks and anecdotes about how dangerous they are. And when movies need to show a vicious dog, it's often a pit bull. Why is that? Is there something about these dogs that makes them inherently more dangerous? America has a long history of demonizing certain dogs. The first dog that caused a public outcry was this. The Spitz, a type of dog we'd most likely now call a Pomeranian. They got their reputation as women's dogs, with one doctor essentially saying that women deserve whatever consequences come from having dogs instead of babies. Articles said that these dogs were aggressive and deadly, and called them treacherous beasts. Meanwhile, pit bulls were once thought of as a great family dog.
They really were just seen as the Honda Civic of dogs.
This is Bronwyn Dickey. She spent over 7 years researching and writing a book about pit bulls.
The kind of Horatio Alger, plucky, everyman dog.
A pit bull was the lovable sidekick of the Little Rascals, and they were even used in military posters to advertise patriotism. So what changed? In the 1960s and 70s, the cultural landscape started to shift dramatically. Crime rates rose across the country, especially in America's largest cities.
It made people believe that they were in danger all the time. And what you see is a lot of people getting those dogs to acquire like a small, medium, smooth-coated dog with a big head, whatever you want to call it. It's always been easier to acquire that type of dog than, again, your $3,000 to $5,000 champion Labrador.
One New York Times article from 1971 said that residents of the Bronx got guard dogs to take care of themselves, since the city wasn't doing it for them. The 1980s also ushered in a new era of rap music, which directly confronted the deterioration of inner cities and featured many references to pit bulls. Once these dogs became associated with urban poverty and the plight of black youth, they became proxies for human prejudice and racism. News stories associated these dogs with drug dealers and criminals.
You would see comments like, "We have enough of those people here, they don't need to bring their dogs here."
A stereotype of pit bulls had emerged in the media. They had gone from family-friendly to national foe. But let's back up for a second. What even is a pit bull?
The term pit bull is a lot like the term hound. It's a breed group. It's a generalized shape. It's not a specific breed. Within that category, there are 4 pure breeds.
The American Pit Bull Terrier, the American Staffordshire Terrier, the American Bully, and the Staffordshire Bull Terrier. They were bred down from the British Bull and Terrier dogs, which were in turn descendants of English Bulldogs. Because of this, a lot of people use the term pit bull-shaped dog. But for the sake of simplicity, I'll be saying pit bull in this video. Pit bull's reputation has led them to being included in the more than 700 US cities breed-specific legislation, also known as BSL.
Breed-specific?
That's crazy, because there's so many different breeds now of pit bull, bro. and to know it only derived from like 4 or a few. Like, I've heard of so many different breeds. It's insane, and the prices are even more insane. Like, you probably know several people in your family who are breeding dogs, and one of them being pit bulls. It's a wave.
Legislation is an attempt to restrict or ban ownership of a dog based purely on essentially their breed, right? What they look like. You have this unfortunate perception that they're aggressive dogs who are born to fight and dangerous.
To justify BSL, pit bull opponents often cite legal rulings, such as the 2012 Court of Appeals ruling from Maryland, which says that pit bulls are inherently dangerous.
The way that we as a society sometimes treat dogs is what makes them dangerous. I don't think there's a breed that's inherently dangerous.
The dissenting judge from the 2012 case pointed out a lack of proof to support the inherently dangerous designation and highlighted that dog bite statistics are unreliable.
We don't have good numbers on which dogs bite the most in general because of reporting biases. Smaller dogs or other dogs bite, and it just doesn't get reported the same way it does if it were a pit bull. I think pit bull attacks make for good news, just like shark attacks do, right? We know that not a lot of people die from shark attacks every year, but when one does, it's on the news.
Even just determining a dog's breed is incredibly difficult.
People see a large dog and think pit bull automatically, unless it's a breed that they can readily identify.
But it's almost impossible to judge what breed a dog is by sight. Most dogs are mixed breed, with some being a mixture of several different kinds. A study found that nearly 90% of dogs in shelters that were labeled as a particular breed were misidentified, and dogs were labeled as pit bull type dogs almost half the time, even without DNA evidence. Which means that a lot of dogs that may look like pit bull mixes don't actually have any pit bull in them.
And then there's just their sheer population. They're one of our most popular dogs. So if you're looking at just straight numbers, there are always going to be more bites reported from popular breeds than there are from dogs who are not as popular.
For this reason and more, the American Veterinary Medical Association cautioned in 2001 that dog bite statistics are not really statistics, and they do not give an accurate picture of dogs that bite.
We know that BSL doesn't work, and that's sort of the bottom line, is even in places where these laws exist, they haven't prevented bites and attacks.
Denver spent $5.8 million over 30 years enforcing their pit bull ban, with little measurable impact on public safety. Similarly in Denmark, pit bulls were banned in 2010, and the country didn't see any significant changes in dog bite hospitalizations. So what does this mean for these dogs and their owners?
There are many, many, many rental properties where you cannot live if you have a dog that is considered a pit bull.
It was either a size thing, like no dogs over 30 pounds, or if they did accept large dogs, they said that caveat, no pit bulls.
This is Lauren, a friend at Vox who has a pit bull named Dilly. She said many landlords simply don't allow pit bulls.
It's very difficult. I think a lot of people agree that they're misunderstood. When we first got him, I was afraid he was gonna shred our apartment. And the worst he did was nibbled on the side of my hat once. Anytime I have to fill out any paperwork for him, I say mixed breed, just to be safe.
I see so many people come through and they'll absolutely fall in love with a dog. And then they'll say, is it a pit bull? And I'll say, well, we don't really know. And then they move on to another dog. It's a really sad moment for me when that dog who is awesome and those people who are really interested in taking him home and they can't because of restrictions. I think people want an easy answer to preventing dog bites, and they think that that easy answer is, if we can focus on this one breed that is known for fighting. But the answer is that we need to really look at the way that we treat dogs, and are we meeting the needs of these dogs? And the answer is we're not always. That
I agree with. I agree with it, man. I don't think people think of what it takes. They just fall in love with the idea of getting a dog and don't understand how much having a dog is like having it is having a kid. You know what I mean? You have doctor's visits and appointments and things you have to keep up with. Dogs get sick, you have to tend to them. They have feeding schedules. They have different things that you have to do to make sure they're well taken care of. Outside time. You know what I mean? Like attention. Dogs need, just like children, attention, love, care, affection, everything. Like they deserve that, in my opinion. They deserve that, bro. So if you don't have the time, the money, the attention to put into a dog, I don't think you need to get one, bro. And I think that's where a lot of problems occur.
Left alone for large periods of time in a backyard with no socialization and no training, those dogs aren't getting their needs met and they're not having a good life. And if we can empower people to help those dogs, then we can prevent bites and attacks from happening.
Now, this is the scary side of things, right? For everyone, you have to hear this.
A tech company stole our voices, made clones of them as AI clones, and sold them possibly hundreds of thousands of times.
This is Paul and Linnea, voiceover actors based in New York City. Last summer, they were in the car listening to a podcast about the Hollywood writer's strike and how it might affect VO artists like them when something strange happened.
This specific episode, the host was going to interview an AI entity about the potential harm that AI will have on the entertainment industry. And he is interviewing my voice.
Good morning. Is it okay with you if I call you Poe?
Absolutely. Billy, feel free to call me Poe. As a generative AI technology, how disturbing and terrifying that moment is hard to articulate.
I spent 6 hours on the internet that night, searching as many text-to-speech products that I could find and listening to all of the voices that they offered until I stumbled upon Lovo.
Lovo are this company, a Berkeley-based text-to-speech platform. Just type what you want to hear.
And one of dozens of synthetic voices like this one. Or maybe this one.
Or this one will read it back in a matter of seconds.
But once she started poking around the company's site, Linnea said she found an AI voice that sounded just like Paul.
I mean, I was stunned. I couldn't believe it. And out of pure curiosity, I just started listening to the other voices, thinking maybe I'll recognize someone I know, a colleague from the voiceover world. And that's when I stumbled upon my voice.
So in May, Paul and Linnea filed a class action lawsuit against Lovo, saying the company illegally stole their voices and identities without permission or proper compensation. The company has not yet filed a response. So how did this even happen?
So in October of 2019, a freelancing site that I'm on where I regularly procure voiceover work reached out to me asking if I would record some scripts for them.
The couple say the scripts were generic radio ads, ones the user said would never be broadcast, so they didn't need expensive usage rights.
They were quite generic. You know, do you need a dry cleaner in Idaho? We're here, right around the corner, your neighborhood dry cleaner.
Paul says about 6 months later, he got a similar request to record dozens of generic sounding radio scripts. In messages the couple shared with the BBC, you can see the user appears to say the audio will be used for research into speech synthesis. Paul follows up to clarify whether the audio will be used for anything other than their specific research. In the next message, the user then appears to confirm the audio will not be used for anything else.
And then I asked, will you be changing the order of my audio or using it in any separate way? And they said no.
As for Linnea, she says the user she spoke with deleted part of the conversation. But in the communications that remain, it appears the user presents the scripts as test radio ads, ones that will not be disclosed externally. The couple said there was no formal contract, just these messages they've shared with us. We can't, however, verify if these are the complete conversations. In both cases, though, the couple recorded the audio, sent the files, and moved on.
We only need a person to read 50 sentences, and I believe that's something an average Joe could do.
The voice you're hearing is Tom Lee, co-founder of Lovo, speaking on a business podcast about how their voice cloning technology works.
We can capture the tone, the character, the style, the phonemes, and how you even, if you have an accent, we can even capture that as well.
We reached out to Lovo on multiple occasions to request an interview with Mr. Lee. We also asked for any correspondence or conversations they may have with Paul and Linnea. They did not respond to any of our messages.
So what's going on in the voice actor cases are a field of law known as rights of publicity. The thing that's being copied is not a piece of copyrighted work, but a piece of someone's personality, right? And so then we get these personality rights or rights of publicity where the allegation is not you copied my song or you copied my drawing, but rather you copied my voice.
Professor Garcia also says the licenses the couple granted the user who contacted them may have also been violated.
Licenses are permission for a very specific and narrow use, right? I might give you a license that you can swim in my swimming pool one afternoon, but that doesn't mean you can come whenever you want and have a party in my swimming pool, right? That would exceed the terms of the license. And I think that would be the argument for these voice actors here.
The voices have since been removed from the company's website, but an ad still exists online where Paul's supposed voice clone can be heard. So I sat down with the couple to take a listen myself.
Introducing Jenny by Lovo. Artificial intelligence that makes it fast and easy to create voiceovers for marketing, e-learning, documentaries, animations, games, audiobooks, and more. Introducing Jenny by Lovo. Artificial intelligence that makes it fast and easy to create voiceovers for marketing, e-learning, documentaries, animations, games, audiobooks, and more.
When we all thought of AI in the future, we thought AI is going to be folding our laundry and making us dinner. We didn't think AI is going to replace human beings' creative endeavors.
This case is just one of many being brought against AI companies.
I think people said it, but we didn't know to what extent. You know what I mean? We thought replacing us in like fields of working in a warehouse or something like that, or whatever, truck driving jobs and stuff like that. We didn't know the full extent. And I think that's where it's taken us by surprise as well.
Companies by artists who don't want to lose control of their work and livelihoods, and more are likely to come.
We really have no other choice but to stand up and give our energy to this, because when companies develop technology that way, it's not innovation anymore, it's just exploitation.